Welcome back to the bottom line. Today I'm joined with Thomas Erb. This is an incredible conversation we're having so far, and I want to talk about something many people underestimate: the importance of experience in family law. When emotions run high and stakes are even higher, experience becomes more than just a credential, it becomes a shield. So, Thomas, it's great having you on the show. I'm enjoying this conversation. And just like always, I want to get right to the bottom line of this topic and try to get as much value to the people out there that need to hear what you got to say. So, why is it so critical to have experienced legal counsel during those family law disputes?
Experience can really make the difference between how your parenting time ends up. The changes in the Ohio Revised Code are fast, they come often, and you really need to have somebody who's familiar with the changes in the law, because the law has changed drastically in the state of Ohio since 2019 in regards to child support. And so if you don't do this all day every day, you're not going to know that you get a 10% deviation if you have more than 90 overnights a year. And then you get a second deviation if you have more than 147 overnights per year. I don't know where the Ohio legislature came up with 147 overnights and made that like the magic number, but that's what they did. And now they're overhauling, or they're working on overhauling, the entire parenting section of the Ohio Revised Code, which is 310904, and it's 437 pages. And that's going to drastically change the way parenting is done in Ohio in the future when it passes. They've tried to pass it a couple times in the past. It's kind of failed previously. It looks like this time it's going to get the green light. And as soon as it comes out, I know I'm going to have people calling me, what does this new bill mean for me? And it'll be years before the appellate court, takes it up and we figure out what exactly it means. But having a base knowledge of how things work, in the family law court, is just, it's invaluable to have somebody who knows what they're talking about and follows this stuff all the time. Like I was saying earlier, you don't want to get caught up in, I've practiced 50 years. Well, that's fantastic. But if you spent those 50 years doing real estate law and now you're trying to take domestic, they don't correlate. There's not really that crossover between the two. So experience in family law or in any other area of law, when you're talking to an attorney, when you need that attorney for that area, is just so key.
That's a good point. I kind of was chewing on a thought there. I certainly don't want someone that's going to jump in and wing it, right? And just figure it out as they go, or run into a situation where they're not sure and just move as if they know everything, right? It's with so many things that can change and all the stuff that's up to interpretation, that experience is absolutely critical to, number one, navigate the complexities. Number two, keep the clients settled and comfortable and confident in what's to come. But with it being, family matters, it's delicate. It's not something you really just want to toss up in the wind and just where it lands, it lands. You want somebody that can give you a target, show you the path, and actually execute, right? So here's, we've touched base on this next one a little bit, but I want to dig into it a little bit more. And how does that courtroom experience give clients an edge in high stakes situations?
Well, if you're a family law attorney, you're in court all of the time. And so I do tell clients often, because there are surprises that come up when you're at the courtroom. Sometimes you might be there not expecting a hearing and the magistrate says, "Hey, I want to hear evidence right now." So I say, "Well, yeah, I'm going to wing it." Well, am I actually winging it? I'm not. I know the case, I know the facts, I know what the magistrate is looking for. And so I'm able to present and tailor that evidence for the particular magistrate that we're in front of. But it requires a lot of thinking on your feet. And so the high volume of hearings that I do, a lot of them seem to take the same shape. And I work with a cadre of attorneys who I see all of the time, and I know what they're going to say before they even open their mouth, because it's the same information. I was there last week, and I was on a spousal support case where my client was trying to receive spousal support. And then an hour later, I walked back in and my client was going to be the payor and, of course, didn't want to pay. So I had to make two separate arguments for two separate clients within the span of 2 hours and advocate to the court as to why the first client needed the money and why the second client shouldn't have to pay any money. And so you really need to know what you're doing and have a plan prior to walking in, and sort of you map that out for your client. Usually there's so many hypotheticals that you could run from, and think about. You really have to narrow it down to maybe three for them. I find three seems to be something that they can focus on. And I usually say, hey, look, here's option one that might happen. Here's option two. Here's option three. I think those are the most likely options based on this particular set of facts and circumstances. I think it's going to be one. I think it's going to be one. I have pretty high confidence in what option one is. And that makes them feel a whole lot better. And then, by the way, when option one happens, you've got a client for life because they know that you know what you were talking about. You predicted the outcome that was going to happen, and they feel a whole lot better about it. And they're going to tell all of their friends about you.
I think that's a great way for the experience to really kind of highlight itself when you're able to give some good vision and a good idea of where things are going to go and what to expect. I think that adds significant value to a client and to the situation. I mean, that can definitely lower tension and lower hostility. And I think in situations like this that are so delicate and so intimate, right? This is a very personal thing. I think that type of ability to be able to give them some vision and settle it down a little bit can definitely change how this whole process is received. It can either be a very traumatic experience or it can be something that maybe can change perspective in somebody and also gain a little bit of hope for what the future brings. So, what do you wish more people understood about the role of legal strategy in protecting families?
Well, I think legal strategy is important. In your first meeting with your client, you really need to be able to lay out sort of how the case is going to run, how long it's going to take, what you're going to do in between those time periods, what kind of access they're going to have to you, what kind of conversations you're going to be having to have. I usually give sort of a highlight reel of here's the stuff we're going to need to talk about as we move through the case. And then I try and break it down piece by piece as it comes up because it's frankly overwhelming. I can sit here and talk about spousal support for 2 hours. Who's going to listen to me talk about spousal support for 2 hours? Absolutely nobody. So I try and give enough information that they can make an informed decision because that's really my role. I'm a Sherpa. Okay. I'm a guide. I don't make any decisions. I recommend things based on my past experiences in doing this type of law. But I don't, people think attorneys get to make decisions. We don't. We make absolutely no decisions. We present the pluses, the minuses. There's always pluses and minuses. There's never a slam dunk. If I had $1 for every time somebody said this is going to be easy, I'd be very rich. It's never as easy as somebody thinks it's going to be, or, oh, my spouse is absolutely going to sign this agreement as soon as you draft it up. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to have you remember this conversation in about 5 months when we're still doing this and they haven't signed it. Now, I always hope they're going to sign it. But I think the strategy needs to be you need to focus your clients on those individual decision points, right? Not overwhelming them with, okay, well, you have to make all of these the 19 decisions that you have to make in a divorce case all at once. You really got to focus them in and go over, here's the strategy if we do this, here's the strategy if we do that. This is what I think you ought to do. What do you want to do?
That's very interesting, honestly, and it kind of makes me wonder how many situations have you been in where it started off pretty nasty, but because of your ability, it turned out to be diffused and be settled in an amicable way?
It really takes two attorneys, to be able to do that. Because while I can cool down the temperature, if the other side keeps ramping it up, I have to respond in kind. That's why I like to start things off on a low burner, unless the client specifically tells me to take it to 100. I like to start things out low because if we can keep it low, it's going to be beneficial for everybody. Now, something comes up in the middle of the case. Sometimes things blow up. Uh, then they'll calm back down. It really, family law cases are so factually dependent that one fact that you didn't know prior can really change how your advice to your client is delivered. Working a case recently where one fact changed the entire trajectory of the case from going, this way, it went the other way. It went worse for my client because I didn't know one of the facts. And then when I found out, I was like, we just spent 9 months preparing this case based on a set of facts and circumstances that I knew 9 months ago. I didn't know this. We could have prepared a whole different trajectory and minimized that fact, which really it wasn't even that bad of a fact. Okay, it wasn't. But because
It's kind of interesting when you bring that up. Actually, I find that really I can relate to that, especially in the world of consulting. Right, I can use my experience to kind of test this one a little bit. You can only do the best you can with the facts that you have and the facts that are shared with you. Right, if your client doesn't give you all the truth or hides things or forgets something, it can be a game changer later down the road. It can cause a lot of problems potentially. So I find that to be very relatable, but I think it also highlights trust in your legal counsel. Be honest, be open. They're already in the mix of it with you. They are there to help you, not hinder you.
as long as
Right?
they're
It's
a
it's
good
not a
one,
judgmental
Ryan,
thing.
as long as they're a good one, you
Right.
trust them. If they're
Right.
not a good one, then what are you doing?
Right. So I've got to ask, where can our audience find you? Because this conversation's been very enlightening, and I think our audience would love to get in contact with you. Where can they find you?
We're in Medina, Ohio. www.herblegal.com is our website. I'm also on LinkedIn. Underneath my name, we've got a YouTube page. There's lots of ways to find us. If you type in Herb Legal, you're going to find us. And we service about, like I said, 3 or 4, 5 Northeast Ohio counties pretty regularly. We will go anywhere if the story's interesting. I love an interesting story. I love something I haven't dealt with on a regular basis before because it really gives me an opportunity to stretch my legal imagination rather than the same, thing every single time.
That's fantastic. I've got to stay in touch with you. You're an incredible person, and you've got a fountain of knowledge. So don't go anywhere. This conversation has been tremendous. In our next segment, I'm going to dive into some of my own beliefs, my own thoughts, my own perspectives on this topic. We'll be right back on the bottom line.